Going live, buddy. Going live.
Well, there looked like a little bit of a smile, unless that was pure ornery. Good morning, everybody.
I never know. I don't know what to do with my hands. Like Ricky Bobby would say.
Welcome, everybody. Let me introduce you to, you may have seen him before, but a new member to our crew here, Mr. Boone Thomas. Or Tom, yeah, that's right,
Boone Thomas Lockwood.
Lockwood.
Boone
Good morning,
Thomas.
Mike Cabral. Good morning, Tina. Good morning, Ian. Good morning. Hey, Tony, Phantasmic Chronicles, excuse me. Francisco was in here earlier. If he's still around. Ian, I got good news and bad news, buddy. Bad news is I didn't find the video. The good news is that means you probably have to stay awake the whole show.
Hey, Ian. We found a train, an 1842 government training video on how to traverse the Oregon Trail. It's a good one.
It's a good one. You're gonna like it though. It'll keep you up.
Oh, he just called your Tam a beret.
I saw it. I just didn't say that. This is a Tam, and it's made a little bit different than a beret.
You just bit me, you little devil.
Mark said you should turn a rifle, or Phil said you need to turn a rifle loose on that mother. Literally a mother. Mark's been sharing pictures.
She keeps chasing us out of the yard. She's gonna get a rifle turned on. Don't tell the game and fish.
Nobody here mentions that. Nobody heard that here, just in case.
What are you doing?
What is he doing?
He's trying to get a hold of this fly swat.
Oh, you know what to do with that?
You don't want that. That's nasty.
Here. Tina said, hi, Mark, and sweet Boone. Well, she don't know, does she?
Now he's got a big old piece of hammer in his hand. He just dropped it on my toe. I'm sorry.
Unfortunately, young Boone's been with Mark and Shauna for a couple of days this week, and he's not been very sweet or happy.
He's been fine. He's just been fussy because he's got teeth coming.
Well, he's kept you awake nights, or at least he's kept Shauna awake nights.
He's kept my wife awake. Yep. You've been keeping Grandma awake, haven't you? Because I've got the gene that allows me to sleep through those sounds.
Ian says you look like you might be getting beat up over there.
He just dropped a big chunk of deer antler on my toe.
Well, that always feels good in the morning. They look like an antler tool. I see a crack shot.
You do?
I do.
Oh, you do.
Been out after the starlings, have you, or the
skunks?
The skunk. Yeah, that's probably better than a 45.
Yeah.
Good morning, Carol.
It's sure better on my ears.
Hey, Carol's here. You want to get up and say hi?
Look here.
Say hi.
Look here, Uncle Tim's gonna bring a big old big old cow.
Come here. Come up here and say hi to Boone. Oh my goodness, good God.
I mean a big one. Look at the size of that thing. That's as big as a bobcat.
Say hey, Boone.
Look there. Look there. Look at that cat. Oh, it just got him.
It did get me, you're right. He said he'll be back later. He's kind of, Carol, I don't know, he's kind of he said something earlier this morning about wanting a star on his door. I don't know. This might be going too far. He's already getting free room and board. He gets all the cuddles he wants. He gets all the ear scritches. He gets belly rubs. He sleeps in my lap. I don't know how much more he could want.
Here, you want that piece of antler?
Mike Craball, I gotta ask, where's your lovely wife? She doing the donut run this morning? There's Francisco. Well, I hope everybody's having a good Saturday morning. I don't know what the weather's like. Is it raining for you again today, Mark?
Sure looks like it could.
How about Ohio, Tony? How's Ohio going today?
Don't hit yourself in the head with that. Silly. Huh?
Hi, Shauna.
Hi.
He's good.
Do you want some milk?
He does, probably.
Do you?
Uh-oh. No, babe.
Sorry, I asked. I'm coming. I'm coming.
Well, that sounded like a happy baby. At least. She's got to go into work this morning. Well, we'll miss her until if she can come in. I hope she can make it in a little bit.
Bones crying for eggs.
Crying for eggs?
He wants some eggs, by golly, and he wants them now.
This is what we call fun with children this morning.
Oh. He'll be off and running here in a minute.
Mike says it's raining up his way, and it's been raining since all day yesterday. Ian, what about down your way? You guys getting any rain, snow, or just dry and hot?
No,
weather sure has been a mess this year.
Where's that? Which province are you in, Mike?
He might be in Ottawa. Hey, there's Diana. Good morning, Diana. I was worried there for a minute. I only had Mike in the room. He might be in Saskatchewan. I can't. Sing us a tune there.
He was singing Cor Blund songs a little while ago.
What was he? Does he know Calvary? And
we were singing along to the Horse Soldier and to the Student Visa song and buddy.
Tina said that
bud.
One of her, Morgan, the hound, heard the baby crying. Not sure what she thought, but she had a weird look on her face. He just said Central Canada. I don't think that's a province, but
is that Manitoba or Saskatchewan?
It might be Manitoba. I know they're Winnipeg hockey fans. I know that. I believe that's what he told me. Oh yeah. That's an Indian song there.
Now he's doing his young Forrest Gump imitation.
Well, I thought there for a minute he was trying to sound like a hoot owl.
Last night he was sounding like a hoot owl. For real. He just about had the cadence down perfect. The owl was howling outside the window, like I said. And he was mocking it. And he'll be calling him in here in a little bit. Huh, buddy?
Brenda said she likes the Horse Soldier song.
What's that?
Brenda likes the Horse Soldier song. She might like the Cavalry one too, but she really likes the other one though. Hey, Dave, welcome in, buddy. Adventures by Dave is in the room. Yeah, she really likes that Corblund song about all the horse soldiers all through the years, which is I highly recommend if anybody has never heard any Corblund, and he's a Canadian. He's Canadian, Mike.
His band is called the Hurtin' Albertans.
I didn't realize that. I just knew his name. I didn't. The Hurtin' Albertans.
Because they're all rancher boys from, southern Alberta. That the coal mines want all their country now. Hey, back up, bud.
Oh, did you see him on? Speaking of that, have you seen him online doing like public service announcements about that?
Yep.
Me too. I didn't realize that was getting to be such a thing up there. I hope they can kind of. I don't know if there's part of me says I hope they nip it in the bud. I guess there's part of me that thinks if they have to do it, they sure need to stay on them tight, because if they don't, they'll ruin the world up there.
Yep.
They've got a real coal companies left this part of the country in rough shape years back.
Well, and all them like those rivers and stuff up where mom and dad live, there's still turquoise blue water from poison crap coming out of the ground. So, yeah, they got to watch them.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Brenda. Yeah, they do, but I don't know what kind of regulations they have up there, and I don't know where they're at, but man, you can still drive up in the mountains around here and find leaky acid stuff coming out of the side of the mountain, and it's all stuff they left and drove away from, because they used to be able to get away with that. The coal companies, they quit mining and then they just walked away from everything. The only good thing I can tell you for sure that came out of that was there was a point in time when they created some of the best grouse habitat in the country, which is, I kind of hate to admit, but they did.
They did.
Look,
Grandma's getting me. Oh my goodness gracious!
Oh, are your eggs ready? Is that his eggs?
Now that's a boy that likes to eat right there.
Yeah, it is.
She'll be back in just a second.
Brenda asked me a silly question yesterday, brother.
What was that?
Well, she said, is Mark keeping that baby all day long while everybody else is at work?
No.
To which I said, are you kidding me?
No.
You don't change diapers, not poopy ones anyway.
I'm done with that.
Hang on.
No, there's a gal in town that takes care of all of our grandbabies.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's who it was, Brenda. There you go.
He's got to go spend time with the gal that watches all the children, and she's been a hero this week. She's had a whole passel of them. So.
Oh wow, a whole passel of yours? Is that all she does is tend to Lockwood babies and Lockwood?
No, she's got. I think she's got a couple more, but Shauna just said no. It's just our grandkids. So.
Well, that's getting to be where that might be about all she wants.
Well, she was out of the baby. She didn't want to do any more baby stuff, keep any more babies, and because our other ones are older now, but she's back in the baby business this week.
Oh man, Tina says her driveway's getting resurfaced, and she's trying to keep the dogs out of it. Oh heavens, you'll have dog cracks all through your house. I'm going to do something different today for beginning, because I've got something. Brenda, this Mark called. I'm sure Mark calls this. No.
What did I do now?
I got it right.
Did the Amazon guy come?
Well, the coffee, that's not marked. This is a business expense for the show. The coffee man came.
Oh, well, I didn't cause that at all.
No, you didn't cause this. I can't do that, but she does want to talk to you about the book.
About
your book. A good time to talk to him, Brenda.
About your book habit.
Oh, you know what? I haven't closed my door. Brenda's going to be yelling at me. She's probably going to be yelling at me anyway.
I'm sure you deserve it.
Yeah, sure. Wait a minute. Whose side are you on?
Always yours, but that don't mean you don't deserve it. That's cool. That's very cool.
Look at that hoot owl.
Look, right.
Can you see it?
Yeah, he's getting all excited about that.
Sorry, Brenda, I couldn't resist this one. It has a hoot owl on it. Thanks, Dave.
Buddy.
I've got 2 or 3 other mugs. Brenda will tell you I have too many, but this one is extremely good because this one is, well, it's numbered. I got number 287, looks like. This is actually the first time I've been able to get one of these really limited ones they do. I really wanted this one because of the owl on it. That's owls were kind of a special thing around here for years. So, and we've been talking about them this morning, so I'll be getting that one ready to drink out of real soon. This one fits my warmer, my cup warmer better. The base is how much coffee does it hold? This one probably holds better than 12 ounces, but now I've got a couple of their mugs that hold 16 ounces, Mike. They hold a lot. And they're very heavy. That's the other problem with them. I really like them, but a couple of them are really heavy. And they don't fit my base. Well, here, I'll show you. Here's the other one I really like. It's similar glaze. But see the difference in the base size? Whoop. This one, and how can I it is that one. Boy, that's confusing. Try to do that. This one is much larger. Oh, this one's 227. I didn't realize that. Than this one. And this one will fit on my cup warmer. So that's the other reason I got it. See, Brenda, I needed it. Hang on, let me hop up here and shut the window. I'll be right back. Not shut the window, shut the door. If you hear a loud crash, it'll be me hitting the floor. Here's what you're in trouble for. Things like this.
What is that book?
This is another James Mooney. Have you ever heard of him?
Who?
James Mooney.
I never heard of him. So I ain't in trouble for that one.
Yeah, you are. I told Brenda it was your fault. So you are. As soon as it showed up on the doorstep, the first thing I said was, "That dang Mark! Look what he's done."
What?
To which she said, "I'm going to have to talk to that boy."
What? I don't know where to send Tim for his book habit.
I don't know if there's a rehab place for a book habit. How about I send you out on the Oregon Trail with that book? No, she said with that
with all those books.
Now, be nice. Oops. So this one, James Mooney was a gentleman who worked for the, they don't call them the same things anymore. I think he was part of the Department of the Interior, and he might have been part of the Indian Bureau back then. But he was kind of like Edward. What was the guy that did all the photographs of the Native Americans?
Scissorhands?
Huh? What?
You said Edward and I said Scissorhands.
No, not him.
Edward, I have a book.
I'm talking about the guy who did he went out and photographed all the Native Americans he could before they were gone.
Yeah, I have that book.
Edward Curtis.
Edward Curtis. Yep, Edward Curtis.
Well, this guy was doing the same thing, only in writing, and he wrote down stories and everything he could get from a bunch of different tribes. And this one was the history, myth, and sacred formulas of the Cherokee. Eastern and Western. So I thought, man, I need to look at that. And then the other one I got was the Ghost Dance book. I may have already showed you that one.
You showed me that one, yeah.
And I wanted to read this because I've read about the Ghost Dance, but I've never read this much detail about what was really going on.
Well, that's what they were. That's where they were dancing, or the dance they were dancing when Wounded Knee occurred.
Yeah. What I didn't realize was, I always assumed that it was more a part of the Plains Indian stuff, but actually a lot of native tribes, including the Cherokee, had gotten involved, or some, not all, of course, but some.
Yeah, so there was a Paiute man named Wovoka that he received the vision, and he was going around to all the tribes, all of them he could, and and it wasn't an insurrection. It wasn't a. It was a peaceful protest, if you will. It wasn't really even a protest. It was praying for things to go back to normal.
But the U.S. government, or at least certain people, hey, Kay Atwood, welcome in, took it as a sign that they needed to stop them before it got too carried away, because that's what we did, and that's how come Wounded Knee happened.
Yeah,
but I wanted to read more history about it. But this guy was out there living with them, just like some of those Edward Curtis and some of those folks were, and that's where he got all his information. So this should be factual. That sounds like a barred owl out your window now, hooting outside your window.
He just wants more food. The dog just stole his bread.
Oh, no. I can remember when that was a problem around this house a long time ago.
No.
Well, maybe not this exact house, but one of our houses.
And Grandma is a lover of all things, and that dog still got his head right there by his table. Grandpa would like swat his backside and send him on.
Which dog does this one happen to be?
Well, it's not even my dog. It's my son's dog.
So he's Boone's brother.
Yeah.
Big brother. Well, he's probably used to getting food from Boone, and I bet.
Yeah, I suspect so.
Mark has several of his son's animals. His child.
Well, just his
mule.
I got his. Well, that's true. We have
horses and mules.
We have 4 horses, 1 mule, 2 dogs, and a son and a grandboy.
He could hold all that for ransom. He'd be a poor man.
And mama's out working in the field doing her fishery biologist stuff. And daddy's up on the mountain hunting elk.
No. Well, it's a hard job. Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
He's not.
Oh, me. Mike, when you get back, I won't start anything until you get back. How about that?
Sam's not hunting.
Unless you got to run get donuts somewhere, and then we might have to get going. I hope I have an interesting topic today. I've thought about doing it before, and Mark and I were talking yesterday, and we came upon this idea, and he said that'd be a good topic, and I said yes, it would. So we're going to talk a bit about the Oregon Trail.
How come I'm ghosting you? What's that mean? What's that mean?
I'm not sure what she's trying to say in that case. Maybe she's trying to say you're not taking credit for my book habit. I don't know.
Or I'm getting up and leaving, or I'm muting myself.
Oh, maybe that's what she means.
But there's times where it has to be. So.
Oh, mercy. If I missed anybody, let me back up here just for a minute.
I got stuff all over my glasses. I can't figure out what's going on this morning. I'm either going blind
Or your glasses are
or
dirty.
I got crap on my lenses.
So Brenda said, I think what Brenda's trying to tell me is I may have hit my coffee cup limit. She says one more won't fit in the house. I'm sure that's exaggeration. I'm sure that's not entirely true. I'm sure that I can find a place for at least one more. I thought I had one more right there, but I guess where is that? I do seem to be missing. Oh, there it is.
You do seem to be missing a coffee cup.
Yeah, I found it. No worries. I'll be drinking out of this one next week. So since I didn't open it till just now, I didn't have time to clean it. I thought I'd do that as a special opening.
Did I show you my snake cup that my son-in-law got me?
I don't know.
Hold on.
And Mark will be right back with his snake cup. Not to be mistaken for the snake. Whoa!
Look at that beauty.
That's an Atrox too.
That's a Craig Ferguson cup.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah. Actually, I think the guys at the they have a big rattlesnake museum / zoo in Albuquerque, and I think they have those cups made there.
What are you talking about taking my cups to the Goodwill? Why is it always my stuff you're wanting to haul off to the Goodwill? Why is it not your stuff? I think that kind of hurts. Sorry, Tina. Tina said she came back with her breakfast to a snake. Big old rattlesnake, dude.
Big old rattlesnake.
Big biggin.
How does this work? There. Now you can come back to a big old cow moose.
Look there, guys.
That's in my yard this morning.
That's these critters hang out in Mark's house and make attempts to stomp all over them from time to time.
Yeah,
That was
that gal has almost caught me and my wife this year.
yeah, and it could be her quote unquote husband that about caught her the other night too, wasn't it? Wasn't that
Exactly. So there was she. I said, well, what the one that was in the yard, was it a bull or a cow? And she said, what? It had great big paddles. And I'm like, well, that would make it a bull.
yes,
She
it
was-
would.
they're black and they're hard to see at night. And there you
You're
go.
gonna have to make a standing rule. Nobody goes out of the house without a great big flashlight and maybe armed.
Yeah, he's getting a little out of control. So
Oh, thanks, Carol. Whose side are you on? I thought you were a friend. Jiminy Christmas. I'm feeling a little bit ganged up on.
you're gonna go. She's taking you to the Goodwill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one slightly to heavily used husband.
Yeah. I bet they wouldn't take me. And now they're joining up to. This is getting a little scary. You guys can't be doing that. Well, no, Ian, it's not really a disagreement. It's somebody's being ugly. Brenda started off talking about getting rid of my coffee mugs, and when I complained just a tiny bit, Carol suggested that she just take me to the Goodwill and get rid of me, which I don't think is nice. Have you seen all the troubles we're having with people trying to take selfies with buffalo and moose? Oh yes, I've seen several with buffalo, and I'm sorry, this probably won't sound very nice. But
that is
like it when they get hit by the bull. I mean,
that is the Darwin Awards at its finest.
Yes, it is.
Survival of the fittest. If you're
Oh, hey, Don. Good morning. Welcome in. And thank you, Tina. Well, wait a minute now. That's sort of a left-handed compliment, isn't it? Or backhanded, whatever.
Goodwill wouldn't take you anyway.
He wouldn't take me anyway. Thank you. I could be packing his stuff right now while he's on the show and he wouldn't know it. Well, that's true.
I couldn't see my grandson's face when this dog just took a big piece of bread out of his hand just like a second ago.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling there was like a disturbance in the force. I bet he was giving that dog a really nasty look because he started to put it in his mouth and the dog just reached up and took it.
Oh no. Well, was the kid doing anything like this? That's usually a sign.
I just could feel like that he was not happy.
Thank you, Ian. I appreciate that. Us guys got to stick together once in a while, anyway. Yeah, I'm not sure either, Don. I thought so at first, but then I'm not sure. Like I said, I had to reread that. I got excited for a minute because I thought she was taking up for me, but then it kind of went away. Okay, let's talk about the Oregon Trail. And one of my favorite lines from a movie: "Won't nothing grow in Oregon." You need to learn trapping.
Why don't you take up a decent trade and learn trapping?
Learn trapping. And did I tell you I got a copy of that movie the other day?
You did.
Oops, wrong page. Hang on a minute. All righty. Here we go. There's more to that song. I can't remember the rest of it. Maybe that's not really a song. Maybe that's a cheer. Okay, we're going to talk about the Oregon Trail.
Man, look at that thing.
The bear or the trail?
The trail.
Yeah, look at that. It stretches basically from Independence, Missouri, to
Oregon.
Oregon, or the edge of Oregon, and
Washington.
but that's actually not entirely true, because there was a branch that went south to the Salt Lake, and there's another one that went southwest to California.
Yep, dropped clear down through past Salt Lake and went all the way through to southern Nevada,
Yeah,
and then across the Mojave.
the Mojave Desert.
That's a dry old stretch.
That's see what Ian said. Dysentery. I bet dysentery is the word my daughter was trying to remember last night because she remembers playing Oregon Trail when it was a game, when it was a computer game. And she said, "What was the thing they were always trying to avoid?" And I said, "Well, maybe it was cholera." And she said, "That didn't sound right. Probably dysentery."
Well, they had cholera outbreaks that they had to deal with too.
Well, dysentery didn't help call that a bit, because that's kind of how it all got started. Pacific Ocean. Yeah, it went more or less to the Pacific Ocean. Ian said, "I saw wagon trail tracks on the Santa Fe Trail. That was cool." Yeah, they're down there too. Anywhere out in that country where this kind of an impact took place, they're still. Oh, he was talking about the game. Okay. Okay, Brenda has one last thing. One very used up husband comes with guns and knives and books. Oh, you gonna keep the coffee cups now? You forgot the coffee mug. Guns and knives and books. You're gonna give people the wrong impression about me. Maybe not, but so anyway, that's what we're gonna talk about today. And I'll have to admit, this is nothing new for me. I mean, I'm always interested in this kind of history or history about things. And this got a renewed interest this year when I read a book called The Oregon Trail by Rinker Buck, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And she is keeping Teddy. And you got a good point there. Yeah, she didn't mention anything about Teddy either. Oh, I guarantee you she'd keep Teddy before she kept me.
Dog.
Oh, Tina's not. She's not really helping either. Oh, yeah, she's taking the kiddies. Brenda said, "Oh, certainly." Okay. So over a period of 50 years, there's quite a few people traveled this trail. And these are generic pictures. These are just pictures I threw up here for this part. I'll show you some more of these same things, but this is kind of what we think of when we see the trail. They're saying Oregon Trail. That marker says 1843 to 1847 or 57. But there was actually travel on this trail much longer than that.
Yeah, earlier too.
Earlier and later, yeah. Yeah, actually, yeah, quite a few years. So I don't know who put this marker up. It looks like it's just a basic stone with the carvings on it and maybe painted. But in Rinker Buck's book, he talks about he explored that a bit and researched who all put up markers on it and who did it and when. And a lot of them are gone now, the ones they put up, but you'll see a couple more here in a minute. And this is kind of what some of us think about as wagon ruts across the desert, but
it looks like Wyoming. Both of them, actually.
Well, it probably is. I don't know. They didn't say where, but yeah, I thought that. And these ruts aren't very deep, which kind of goes to another part of the trail that people don't talk about. While it's depicted here as a blue line across the country, it was actually more like arteries and veins that spread out like a fan across certain areas, especially once they got past a certain spot in the west or the South Pass. It got so dry and food was so scarce for their animals, they had to spread out in order to find grass for their animals. Otherwise, they couldn't really, they wouldn't survive it. Hey, Shelley, welcome. Well, you got a point there, Tina. She probably won't turn me in if she can't. Of course, they don't pay anyway. She might just drop me off in the drop box, and they can't. They'll have to. I don't know what they'll do with me. She won't be there to for them to send me back. Around here, you can package things up nicely, and Purple Heart will pick it up on their porch for free. I don't know if she's talking about me or somebody else. Her husband, probably. This is starting to get ugly here, ladies.
Tip, how'd this subject come up?
I think she's going to get rid of her husband, too, because a minute ago she said she's got one just like me, and Goodwill won't take him either. So anyway, the truth is the trail is not one solid trail, but there's a main trail, but it really branched out and spread out across the countryside. And I just pulled this up. I think this is obviously a reenactment picture, and there's something wrong with this picture, although there's some right things about it too. This wagon that they're using here is probably more correct than most wagons we think of. But they didn't really pull them with horses very often. That's a Hollywood thing that didn't really happen, and I'll talk about that a little bit more too here in a minute. The trail is approximately 2,200 miles long, but if you figure in all those other smaller trails and the trails that cut off, and if you read Rinker's book, you'll find out that there's shortcuts and long cuts, and there was harder ways to go and easier ways to go. Usually the easier ways to go were much longer than the hard ways. So some people would try to go the hard way and make it. Some wouldn't make it, and some would just go the long way. And they took the chance of getting stuck somewhere, or maybe not making it through the mountains before winter. And I did that again. Got to quit doing that. Somewhere in that time period, they think 300,000 to 500,000 immigrants actually traveled that trail from the early to the later 1800s, but they don't have an exact number because it wasn't like they had a sign-up sheet at the head of the trail. And they think at least 20,000 people died, and I think that's a lot higher. They think there's numbers out there like 20 people per mile. There's 20. They say there could be up to 20 graves per mile that they know about, and then we know that there's a whole lot more trails out there graves, that they don't know about because people find them occasionally. Mark has actually found a few.
Yeah, there's I don't know, 3 or 4 within just a couple of miles of my house here. None of those are documented. They're human-sized stone piles. I assume there's a guy under there or a gal, or
most likely, because that's how they really marked most of them. If they could, they covered them with stone. Sometimes they couldn't even dig in the ground. So
yeah, there's a small grave south of here, about, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 miles that I found. It wasn't on the register, it wasn't documented, and it's got a little head marker on it.
A hand carved one or scratched off one, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's a little stone marker that
I've got an example of those here in a minute, I think. And then the original trail, if you want to call it that, and I guess when the first few people actually tried this, they probably did stick more to one trail. But then afterwards it split off, or was part of it called the Mormon Trail. And then after that, again, there was another California trail that split off. So there was trails that went off to different places. And I've heard it called the Immigrant Trail, which I think some folks have tried to call it that because, again, everybody wasn't going to Oregon, but I think the original name Oregon Trail should stand. I don't know that they're really fighting that, but I've seen it written both ways.
They've called it the Immigrant Trail for long time. Mary Sandos that wrote Crazy Horse, they called it the Immigrant Trail then. The Holy Road, the Lakotas called it the Holy Road. You weren't allowed to mess with people going along the immigrant trail. And anyway, so it's been called various things over time, but
I looked that up, Tina. So I think you're. I mean, that's partially right. Immigrants are the I with an I are the leavers. The E is those who've moved to settle in other lands. And if you look at the definition as it is in Merriam-Webster or something, I looked it up because I want to make sure I got that right, and I still may be wrong. Was that it usually meant when they changed countries, but in this case, it was just different parts of the country, but it might as well have been the backside of the moon.
so Ian makes a good point about the Mormons that moved to southern Idaho all thought they were settling in Utah.
Well, I don't doubt that. Well, that's one thing about that, Ian, was state lines and things like that weren't as established as they became later. So sometimes that happened, and lines
I don't know. Well, wow, they were all territories then, anyway.
Well,
so.
that's true. That's true. And Carol says she can't even imagine having to bury people like that and just keep moving on in hopes that the rest of the party would make it. Well, that's true, and I'm sure that was a hard thing they had to do, or had to learn. But death. Ian's giving me more history school here.
Change over from Utah State. Yeah. We have some kind of famous graves not too far from the house that are documented, and that death happened regularly, I guess, and there's a story about one of the graves they have. The BLM has a whole history on this specific grave, and it was a man that was sick, and they left him with two guys in the middle of Indian country. and the train went on. And they're like, when he passes away, please bury him.
And come on.
And I guess they didn't get like a mile and a half up the trail, and here they come. And they knocked him in the head with a shovel or something, and like
he died pretty quick.
We're not staying here by our lonesomes with
That's interesting. You pointed that one out because Rinker Buck talks about that one too. And he talked about markers and things. I don't know if I've got that marker on here or not. I've picked up a few, but yeah, that's what I was going to say, Brenda. They were so used to it, more used to it than we were. I mean, I've read stuff that talked about kids and adults being so used to family members dying that it wasn't, they grieved and they were sad and all that like we are, but they had to look at it a different way, and it was a harder life, so it was almost expected. And I can only imagine that they just hoped they got out there with most of their family when they took off on something like this. I've never read it said quite that way, but I would imagine they did. Tina says, yes, immigrant with an I and two M's is one who leaves another country. Immigrant is to leave one country or region to settle in another. Well, there you go, Tina. Hot damn, I can write that down. Thank you, Tina. Now you brought my self-esteem back up a little bit. Yeah, and thank you for clearing that up. So anyway, most of us think about the movies and television and some books. They always talk about the mighty Conestoga wagons that the settlers went west in, and some did. And freight wagons they did use like that from time to time, back east and probably out west too eventually. But most of the immigrants going towards Oregon and such actually were more in these kind of wagons, sutler style wagon, or I don't know what else you could call it. I mean, and they crammed as much as they could in that, and then themselves too. And of course, a lot of that stuff got dropped along the trail. That was also, I've seen it called the longest graveyard in America, or maybe the world. And I've also heard it called the longest trash dump or trash receptacle, because people emptied all their, I mean, they threw everything. If they threw something away, they just threw it out. And if they couldn't carry something any further, they threw it out. You know, you leave home in the East with your piano and your grandma's favorite china cabinet, and most of the time it didn't get out there. Hey, Kelly, welcome in. The Mickey Bunch is in town. Happy Saturday to you. So would you change from an I to an E after you left your seat? Come on, Brenda. Don't make it worse. Smart Alec. Well, she must really be awake this morning.
but not after Y.
But not after Y. That's right.
Or whatever that rule was.
I before E, except after C,
C.
or whatever
Except
it is.
after
Yeah.
C, and sometimes Y or something.
Okay. Next page. And here's how they traveled. And this photo at the bottom is actually, I put that in there not necessarily because the wagon's correct. It says this is a Conestoga, but it's a smaller one. The big ones were, the ones I think of were much bigger than this, but the top's kind of shaped like that. The reason I put that one in there is the mules. And this is, I think I started talking about this a minute ago, but mules were extremely important in the immigrant travel. Most people who travel by wagon train use mules. On TV, you see oxen and you see horses, big draft horses and things, but that's really not what they used.
They had a lot of oxen go through Fort Laramie, but they didn't. They never would make it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
They were
didn't
too
make
slow, and the oxen would get poor, and they just didn't make until they switched over to mules. They really didn't do very well.
Well, and the thing about mules is, and I didn't know this till I researched it while I was reading the book, the newest book, but mules don't have to eat as much and they don't have to drink as much as horses or oxen.
Right.
And Mark's right. The oxen were really
and they're much more aggravating.
Well, it could have been. Yeah. That might be true, but they could pull. And what I found really neat, and let me back up for a minute. This top wagon here is more like what they would have used. And it's got a kitchen box in the back and cookware. That's a big old Dutch oven there. I like that. And wagon barrels water barrels on the side, and you had to be prepared to carry everything you wanted. And then some. So you had to carry water for your stock. You had to carry water for yourself. I like the fact that this picture up here, which is a museum piece, has got a goose hanging from it, a Canada goose. And this one down here has got a pig. That looks almost like a javelina to me. Or maybe that's an Arkansas Razorback or something. But it's
hanging off the back.
Hanging off the back of that wagon and
getting ready to be supper.
Yeah. It just don't look like a regular domestic pig to me. I don't know. Maybe it's just the way it's hanging.
Yeah, I think it's just a white hog that they got hanging upside down.
And then there was the Mormon hand carts. And this is a story all unto itself. I read up some more on this morning just to make sure I had most of my facts right. And I've got it written down, I think maybe on the next slide. Yeah, well, on the third slide. The photo on the left is a reenactment photo. This one on the right is a hand-drawn art from the period which I thought was pretty cool. And so here's a little bit of information about that. They said that they think there was about 16,000 Mormons immigrated to the U.S. from California, or not from California. Now, wait a minute, that's not the right. From Europe, a lot of them from Scotland and England and Wales and other places, because they had missionaries over there in the middle 1800s. And a lot of those did go out in wagons. They think about 16,000 maybe went out in wagons drawn by ox or mules or whatever, maybe. But they set up a program, and we can comment on this in a minute. But they developed a program and said, hey, if you'll migrate and come over here,
we'll provide you with transportation.
We'll provide you with transportation. But here's a gotcha for that. Once you got to Utah and settled in, if you made it, you had to pay back whatever they supplied you. So, and they actually pull these carts by hand, across the great American desert plains or whatever to Utah. Now, I know that a whole bunch of them didn't make it, and that's debatable. I know in one particular trip, they had a bunch that started out late in the season and got caught in the Wyoming area and died from starvation and snow and cold and all kinds. So a lot of them didn't make it, and it was not an easy trip for any that did make it. And it was kind of a scam. I mean, in a way, it was I guess I shouldn't say it was a scam, but it was kind of a scheme that one, I think, on part of that, on top of the cost that they paid later, they had to also carry supplies out to Salt Lake and the settlements out there. And you can tell what you've heard and know about that from living out there, Marcus.
Well, I mean, I've heard that, that they've got that site up at, they call it the Devil's Gap.
I got a picture of that somewhere.
Where a lot of people died.
Yeah.
It was too late in the year. They shouldn't have never been there. Anyway, from what I've heard, Brigham Young or one of them sent riders back to that country to assist and bring food or whatever, and but a lot of people died. It was cold and it was snowy, and Wyoming's no place to trifle with when it gets wintertime. And anyway, they do recreations every year, but I've heard that they were only allowed to bring about 17 pounds of personal items per cart. And the rest of what they had loaded up was, basically for the church or for the Mormon people or whatever.
Well, and I wanted to also point out in this slide up in that top left-hand corner, that's supposed to be a reenactment of the
Yeah,
car.
and I see them they walk right by here every summer.
Do they?
Oh yeah. Yeah, and they do a stretch from the big reenactment stretch is from Devil's Gap up and across South Pass, which is that's not an easy pull.
No, it's not.
And down to like Farson, Wyoming, on the west side of South Pass. So. Yeah, that's a pretty good walk.
And a rugged walk. Now you've got to keep yourself fed and water, not just your stock. So, and people can't survive on grass and water. Let me back up while he's gone and let you see these slides again, a little bit more time to study. There's a good example of one. That's supposed to be a real cart, even though that's a reenactment photo. And this monument is somewhere out there, and I can't remember if this is in Utah or if this is actually in Kansas. But that this this drawing at the bottom, I'm not sure where that one showed up. That was a magazine, but you can see them walking and pulling. Or this may be something that's out in Salt Lake in the Museum of the Migration or something, but you get a general idea. And one of the terrible things about the trail, the reason they were running from dysentery and disease all the time is, as more and more of these people traveled, they didn't have there weren't any toilet regulations back then. And you didn't have porta potties out there along the trail being serviced. And invariably, you'd camp somewhere near water, and that would cause, what's the right kind of word here? Human waste to get into the water system or into the marshy areas. And as it got hot and the conditions improved for growing bacteria and that sort of thing, you ended up with dysentery more and more, and that added to the waste, and then you ended up with cholera. And I've heard the cholera story told about different things different times, but cholera in this case was it's just another bad case of dysentery. Basically, well, I don't know a polite way to say that. You crapped yourself to death. Which means you're also dehydrated and depleted and all kinds of, but again, that added to the disease. So that was another reason the trail started fanning out over wider areas. Some trains would move to avoid areas that were having cholera or had cholera or were known to be bad for cholera. But they never could get too far away from the water because they had to have that. So when out further west you go, the harder water is to find. So
when you think about when that, within a horseback ride of the trail, a day's horseback ride all the way along that thing, they killed everything. I mean, bison, whatever, they were just gone.
True, because that's how they fed themselves.
I mean, it was, that resources were really thin. They had to get through there pretty quick or they didn't make it.
Be right back. I'm still here, but I gotta move a minute. Stand up and stretch. Yeah, but it was a rough travel. I mean, there wasn't anything easy about it. And let me see what the next slide has. I'll talk even if you can't see me.
Well, and that's why a lot of places got settled that normally they just would have walked through. People were like, okay, we're good. This is where we're stopping.
Yeah, we're going to stop here.
And I got a ranch that I ride for some that the only reason they live where they live is because their wagon broke.
Oh, they can track their history back up to that, huh?
And they busted an axle or something pretty late in the season and couldn't make the pull, and they just stayed. And they got a great big ginormous piece of land, and that's where they stayed.
Ian, you're right about two things there. I see Ian's talking about how rough your winters can be out there. And Mark kind of pointed this out to me years ago because I didn't even think about this, but Wyoming is a high elevation state all the way through it. I mean, it runs from 6,000 or 7,000 feet to over 10,000 feet. Well, and more. I don't know how high, but.
Well, we've got peaks up to 13, but we don't have any, where Ian lives, they've got peaks that go up over 14,000.
Yeah.
But their low ground is way, like Denver's like a mile high city. And Laramie, Wyoming, is a 1.5 mile high city.
Yeah, but you don't hear about that.
And that's in the flats. That's not up on the mountain. So Wyoming's just a big plateau. The whole state's above average elevation. And I think our average elevation in the state's something like 6,500 feet. Our house here is about almost 7,000, and we live in the river bottom. And yeah, so it's a place, and we've got a lot of wind, and we got a lot of snow, and we got a lot of cold, and there's a place that's. Did you show Devil's Gap yet? I had to go.
No, I haven't. I slowed
Look
down.
at a dog fight. But anyway, there was
That's right, Tina.
there were just west of the Devil's Gap, there's a place called as you're heading towards Lander, Wyoming from Devil's Gap, there's a place called the Ice Slough, and it was permafrost, and you could bury meat in the ground and it would freeze. And
Wow.
it's I don't know if it's still an ice slough or not. The site is still there. I've never poked around it and to see, if it's still, but it's in the desert. It's down on the Sweetwater River drainage.
It's tricky because when you go out there, you don't realize how much you're driving. I mean, even to get to Denver, you're going all the way across there. You start climbing up higher and higher till you get to Denver, the eastern part of Colorado and western Kansas or Nebraska butts up against Colorado, and you don't realize how much altitude you've gained because it doesn't look like you're in the mountains. You're just climbing that that steady grade up to the front range, and then they go, and in Colorado, it's real obvious. Then you start going up, but you don't realize just how high you are. And I'm sure that affected people. I mean, you and I came out there, and you lived at Laramie. Yes, you lived in Laramie, right? And we hunted at like 10. We went hunting and camped in the mountains at over 10,000 feet, as I recall. And
yeah, we were on the Sierra Madres. It was probably 11.5 or so where we were camped. Can you hear me?
Yes, I heard you. I'm breathing.
I can't tell. I was.
Yeah, no, I was listening and letting you talk while I was trying to figure out if I'd read this. Tina was asking.
He was talking about the ice slough.
Yeah, the ice slough.
Yeah, and they just dug down in the ground, and the ground it'd be like digging a hole in Alaska. It was permafrost.
I didn't realize that. So that was just one spot. See, I always assumed that Montana was much colder than you guys, but the truth is you guys are colder than they are most of the time.
Yeah, so eastern Montana, we get east of the divide in the eastern 2/3 of Montana out in the plains. It gets darn cold in that country too. But like most of the mountain country in Montana, that's like the Banana Republic or something. It's pretty nice weather compared, temperature wise, at least. They get a lot more snow than we do, but anyway, it's milder temperatures typically. But you go out to like Glendive or Shelby or some of those Fort Peck or Miles City, it's pretty cold in the winter out there.
Yeah, I bet. Well, yeah. And these are a couple more. I got 3 or 4 pictures here of the trail. What we think of as the trail. Again, like I said, it spreads out and probably looks a little bit more like this one on the left, except that when you get up in that desert country, more like to the right, you just see them. They're dirt paths, but out there, those things like this last forever.
So you see that picture on I don't know which way it would be, the left side, the one at the post.
Yeah,
that little concrete post.
This one,
no, the other one.
This one.
Yeah. See that post? Those were markers that the BLM put up along the Oregon Trail. and they all had a really cool like bronze medallion in the top of them that said Oregon Trail, and it, they were kind of cool. And
Too cool.
I used to know where a few of those were at, but they've all been stolen. Every one of them's been broken out of there and stolen.
Just the medallion or the whole post?
Just the medallion. And then that's the problem with it. The Oregon Trail's got a lot of cool stuff along it, but if you tell people about it, they'll go ruin it. But
I got a picture of that too here in a minute.
That trail that you see going there, and I bet that's within 20 miles of my house, that spot.
Oh, really?
What's that?
You said that one to the right is 20 miles from your house?
Well, I don't know which way it's on the left side of my screen.
Okay, well then it's the left. It's the same here.
So that used to be wagon ruts.
Yeah.
Now it's a 2-track road that people drive their trucks on, and Jeeps and whatever.
So the truck tires have widened it then.
Yeah, that's why it looks like a road instead of a. And then the one on the right is more like when you find bits of the trail that people haven't driven on, that's what it looks more like. I don't know why, but.
Well, it makes sense.
It ain't been run.
And here's some more areas of trail that, this.
Yeah, those
lower right-hand picture is like worst case scenario places but this happened. Rinker Buck talks about going through a few places like this where it's wore down through the mud and the rocks, and it's literally is a trace, or it's worn down in from wagon ruts. But the others are more typical. And then the upper right-hand corner is one of those places that was super hard to get across, and I can't remember which one this is, but I know there were some places they had to take the wagons around one way, but the short way might be over this little hump right here. But this was just a reenactment too. But interesting thing about that lower left-hand picture, the black and white one. If you look real close up in the right-hand corner of it, up on the ridge, there's a tunnel. So I'm guessing that's a railroad up there, or that's where the highway goes through. But there's definitely a tunnel up here, if you can see my cursor.
Yeah.
Right in there. I didn't see that when I first pulled this photo up, and I got to look, and I thought, what is that? And I realized what it was.
Tina, you tell your jarhead niece's husband that he can get a hold of me if he wants. If he grew up in Kansas, he grew up cold too. He'll be all right. And he's a jarhead. He'll make it. But
Mark's got long history with Marines.
I like Marines. They can come here.
You got, hang on, I don't know if you've seen this or not.
It ain't been run.
He understands that language. It's been run yet. Like he has a dream, and then if he doesn't know the reality of those states. Well, he may not, but hopefully it'll work out for him, because Lord knows I wanted to get out there for a long time. And here's just a couple of more examples of, again, reality is probably more on this upper left.
So there's my buddies, the McGinnis, with their broke down wagon, and now they stay.
That might be them standing right there.
It might be that family.
But this happened way more often than than we think about. There's their water bucket even on the bottom of their wagon still.
I mean, if you're out in the sagebrush, you're 200 miles to the nearest tree. What are you going to do when your axle breaks?
If you didn't carry one with you, which most of them didn't, then you're in trouble. But that happened to Rinker Buck on his trip, and I'll show you a picture of that too in a minute. Actually, I think it happened twice, but they did break an axle. They had to go be towed into a city and get one done. But the lower left-hand picture is kind of what we envision. You know, it's the Oregon Trail. We got a big wagon string here, wagon train, whatever. And they got the stock turned out here grazing in the semicircle, which may or may not have happened anyway. The truth of the matter is there were very few immigrant, hostile, Indian type interactions on the trail. There were some,
but not very many.
Not like it's depicted in that code.
Yeah, they didn't have to circle the wagons and they did circle the wagons of an evening, mostly to corral livestock.
Yeah, they put their livestock in there too. That's the thing, and most people don't talk about that. But the movies make it look like every time they turned around, they were under Indian attack, and that really wasn't the case.
You're the most annoying dog
on Mike says, ha ha, LOL, Mark likes jarheads.
I got a soft spot in my heart for jarheads. Yeah.
Well, his dad was one, Mike, for quite a few years. So, and Mark grew up a jarhead's kid. So, Kansas is rugged in the winters, Ian says. At least some of Montana and Wyoming have windbreaks. Well, that's true.
Yeah, it's like western Kansas in the wintertime, that's a tough place to eke out a living because it's pretty high and there's nothing to get behind.
Yes, Tina, I'm afraid Hollywood was wrong. I mean, I knew.
But it was still cool to watch.
But it was still fun to watch. Yeah, I'll have to admit. I enjoyed it. The one, and that photograph, or that photo, the drawing there in the lower corner, if you look, those are, I might see mules. I know I see oxen. But mules were such a big deal. Come here, buddy. Come on, you might as well say hi here. Everybody hears you anyway. I've got to study on mules. I got excited about mules because you learn so many things about mules, and when you read up on it a little bit, George Washington was but had a lot to do with breeding American mules in this country after maybe even before he was in the Revolution and then president. But they bred mules. Tennessee was famous for certain kinds of mules. And you hear a lot about the Missouri mules, but most of those are being brought in from other places. And then they were the ones that were sold off to the wagon trains and the immigrants. But most people use mules. They were just stronger, hardier. They just held up better in the long run. That didn't mean they all made it, but now, Tina, this isn't Teddy. This is Spooky. He's our old boy. He's the 21-year-old. Let's just say he's a survivor. Your husband watches all those shows now on the Western Channel. Well, I can't lie. I still. Hang on a minute. I cannot tell a lie, Tina. I still watch them too. Spooky is 21 years old. Yes, he is. He's at least 21. We think that's close. Our daughter found him, and he was still a kitten, a little suck-tail kitten. Found him in a dumpster or hiding behind the dumpster outside of Ruby Tuesdays where she worked after high school. And we've had him ever since. And he's tough stock. He's never been sick. Well, he might have had a cold or a sniffle or some kind of rhino thing virus, but he's never been bad sick ever. He's never had vet problems of any kind. The only thing he ever did, I think, was give Kelly ringworm maybe. And Ian says, I visited the area outside of LA where all those movies were filmed. What do you mean by, is Rick, you mean the rock cliff faces and caves, Ian? I wouldn't mind going out and seeing some of those places. I mean, I personally think the Westerns, sometimes I think we need to bring back the Western.
No, there's no thinking. It needs to be.
I mean,
and I ain't talking about Yellowstone.
No,
which people think is a documentary of Montana.
Which is not.
I love listening to Flint Rasmussen talk about that, because he talks about how their calves come out like 110 pounds and already ear tagged.
For those who might not know, Flint Rasmussen is a rodeo clown with PBR, Professional Bull Riders Association, and who lives in Montana.
Mike says Yellowstone's his favorite TV show.
Oh, sorry, Mike.
It's not a documentary, though, Mike.
Yeah, just remember, it's still Hollywood. And now I'm just going to talk a little bit about those who did not make it. And where I said before, some call it the nation's longest graveyard. Oh, I spelled that wrong. Graveyard. That don't make sense. No. It was treacherous. They think the mortality rate was about 10% of the people who went through, and that adds up to about 20 graves per mile. But there's a lot of them still out there that are unmarked. Most of them are unmarked, other than a pile of rocks, like Mark said, or a sunken strip alongside the trail somewhere with rocks on
it. We ruined Mike's whole life.
Oh no. I lived my life through that TV show. Sorry, Mike.
1883 was a good one, though.
I think they're bringing some more of that back. I heard.
Well, Sam Elliott's already dead. Why would you?
Is he?
Yeah. Didn't you watch it?
Oh, no. Oh, you mean in the show? Well, then I wouldn't bring it.
I meant in the show.
Yeah, I wouldn't bring it back either. If his character's dead, why bring it back? I don't know if you can read it on your screens or not, but this photo is weird. They are saying this is a post-mortem photography somewhere along the trail, and I don't know if that means they carried dead bodies with them to some point where I'm not sure how that worked. You know, they had people that followed settlers out with everything from, they had suppliers along the trail sometimes. Of course, they charged, 4 times as much what it was worth. And they probably had photographers doing the same thing. But according to this,
so are they both gone?
Huh?
Are they both deceased?
That's how I'm reading it. Now, I don't know for sure about that. I can't prove that,
well,
but maybe.
The little kid looks.
Well, look at her eyes.
Well, that's what I just said. That the little kid looks like she's deceased.
Well, maybe mom's holding her for one last time or something. I don't know, but
man, they
used to.
That's a different sensibility than we have today.
Yeah.
To me, that's creepy.
Yeah, that's a little creepy.
I'm sorry. But, we used to sit up with the dead, which people don't do anymore. And
true. Tina, you're right. You are right. They used to take a lot of pictures of dead people. I was going to point out that, you see lots of pictures of dead outlaws from the West that are real pictures.
But I have photos of some of my dead relatives, and I think my wife does too, of her that, they're laying in state in their casket.
You know, it's funny
And
because
they took photos of them on purpose and like,
yeah.
so I mean, it's just a different, yeah, that's right. It's like sitting with the dead. You sit with the dead at night. That was a different time.
Tina, you've seen this picture in particular a lot, or just pictures like that? Well, that's true. Tina's got a good point there. They took a lot of them. They did take photos of lifelike poses, and there's Don sitting up with the common practice, right? And I saw something else there I meant to add to. Mike said that's messed up, but that's what they did. I don't know if you can read those stones. These are examples of one of them. The one on the left is a stone. It says G.O. Willard from Boston.
1855.
1855. And the other one to me looks like a piece of wood that they've carved somebody's name in, and I can't read that, and then kind of buried it in the ground to make it last. Of course, again, out west, a piece of wood like that might last for a couple hundred years.
I mean, I still pick up buffalo horns out here in the desert. You know, and horn is something that deteriorates pretty quickly in most of the world. But here, it lasts and lasts. And I have a whole shelf of them in there. They just laugh for it. And it's probably been 200 years since there was a buffalo here.
Well, I was getting ready to ask you that. There's not I mean, you got buffalo.
Some of them I have found associated with stone points. So they're even older.
Wow.
And it's just, nothing rots out here. It's too dry.
What do you mean?
Soft tissue goes away, but hard tissues and wood and like that just lasts forever. It dries out and cracks, but
we're timing perfect today. And stone points, what he's talking about, stone points here are the prehistoric or older, before Indians out here had, or Native Americans had steel arrowheads, which they traded for from, as white people moved west. And, but they were still using, if it's a stone point, it's a couple hundred years old at least. And Kay said, oh, well, old photos, people didn't smile. No, they didn't. Kay, you're right. They always look like they've got a cob up their butt or something. I mean, some of them look mean. And they're just people.
The women in, like, you if you want to see like a mad woman photo, look at any photo from a settler woman from like Nebraska.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, they were just like, the men would be outside their little soddy, their little dirt hut that they built. They'd be out there just smiling and grinning and like, look what we got. And Mama wasn't happy.
No, that's what I was getting ready to say. Mama probably wasn't happy in that case.
And so Daddy had to go like run cows like way over yonder
on a regular basis. And I've got some more examples of this.
I still think that's why Plains Indian men were such great fighters. Were like, Mama's not happy living here, and now I got to go somewhere far, far away to fight somebody.
So we can move and take it out. Here's a couple of examples of trailside graves, and the one on the right is what Mark was talking about earlier, where he's found piles of rocks. Because
I found several of those.
You just don't find piles of rocks out there in that country unless man did it.
I'm actually looking at the ridge out my back window here, that there's a grave right there on top of that ridge that looks pretty close to that. Just a pile of stones. That's vaguely human being shaped, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way you could tell for sure that was somebody is to excavate them, and that would just not be right. So, and we find long bones and things occasionally in sand dunes that are, well, it's like, well, that's not an antelope leg, and that's not a deer. That's probably a human being. And
Yeah.
we put them back, and
You just bury them where you found them, basically?
yeah, Caitlin came. My daughter came packing one in one day, and it was obviously a human humerus.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Where did you find this?" And she's like, "Right over here." And so we went and put it back, and it's pretty easy to bury a person in a sand dune. Easier. And
Yeah.
then they had put some rocks on, but the rocks had kind of rolled down the dune, and yeah, it just anyway.
Over time.
Yeah, just stuff, you know. You return to your mama. The earth reclaims you.
The photo on the left is an example of one they've actually put up a state marker or a historic marker on that. The largest stone on the end is another one. That's a big one, but that's another hand chiseled type stone. Somebody
So
took
they know who that one is.
Yeah, it says Frederick Richard Fulkerson. But I don't
Yes.
know. At the bottom of the sign says California Trails Association. So that's probably over west of you somewhere, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and I don't know if, you know, they had the Santa Fe Trail. I don't know if part of the California Trail system came off the Santa Fe Trail. Part of it did off the immigrant trail, you know, the Oregon Trail. But I don't know if they connected down there in the Southwest somewhere. But I just think it's fascinating when they actually know who it was and
Well,
about
that
their
can only be
story.
because of the stone. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't know. But
Right.
good morning, Magic of the Mouse Radio. Good to see you, buddy. Mark, that's the gentleman I used to do the radio show with years ago, or
Oh,
couple
cool.
years ago. Mr. Bill. And let's see what I got here next. It's another type similar picture. And I thought these were interesting too. They what was the bottom? That was interesting. It says a memory of an unknown pioneer woman of 1840 something. And it was dedicated in 1936, and they replaced it and rededicated it in 1982. And it was done by the
Daughters of American Revolution.
Yeah, which I thought was kind of interesting. And the one on the right is the grave of the unknown pioneer child who died on the Oregon Trail in 1849. And it was marked by the Columbia Society, Children of the American Revolution, with the cooperation of the Union Pacific Railroad Company. So my guess is that one is in the railroad right of way somewhere out there. And they put that one up in 1954.
So the trail diverts from the UP Railroad right of way over in Nebraska and goes to the kind of northwest, and then, you know, ends up coming through my country here.
But that might be in Nebraska then.
I suspect it because the UP right of way is significantly south of the
trail,
all the way across Wyoming. Because the trail entered Wyoming on the North Platte River just east of Fort Laramie.
Yeah.
And then followed the Platte River up to Casper, and then diverted off and went down to the Sweetwater River at Devil's Gap and Independence Rock, and then goes across South Pass, and then comes across my country here. and it never gets close to the UP Railroad right away in Wyoming, but it follows it in Nebraska.
What's the railroad that goes past your house? Is that another
Well,
UP
it's
train?
part of the UP system, but it wasn't here. I mean, you know, it
Wasn't here
it
then.
wasn't
Yeah.
here. Yeah, so I mean, technically, I guess once you get out in the county I live in and the county to the south, there's so many different branches of the trail, and you had to fan out anyway that it does follow some of that. But I've never seen this marker. It's not out here.
Interesting.
Anyway.
And here's some more I thought were. Mark, you sent me a note that said something about dyslexia. There's an 1843 marker. I can't read the name, but it's the four's backwards.
That's common.
Yeah,
I mean, all those carvings I sent you pictures of that.
Yeah, I'm going to show those just here in a minute. And I thought this was kind of interesting. This one, I'm
Narcissus Apprentice Whitman,
Analyza Hart Spalding, and first women to cross this
pass.
Oh, maybe that wasn't. Maybe I thought that was a gravestone. Maybe that's not.
That's just commemorating the fact that there were two white women that crossed the pass.
I bet they were going to the rendezvous.
They weren't going to take them clear across the divide.
Yeah. Another movie reference, folks. Sorry. Now, this gravestone on the left is probably more common than what you might see out there along the trail. And this is, I find this a little bit interesting. You see stones like this around here still. And if you go up into the mountains and stuff, you still find a lot of these kind of stones out in old cemeteries. And they also, another interesting thing, looks like it's S.M. Marshall. They always put where they're from, in Wadesboro, Kentucky.
So Wadesboro. I was going to ask you what that said.
I don't know where that is, but
I can see the Kentucky part, but not the Wadesboro part.
Yeah, it's Wadesboro, Kentucky, and I don't know where that is right off. We could find it, but.
And is that what year? 1869?
No, 1849.
49.
So that's near the time period when the Mormon thing failed. I think that was the late 40s. I have to check my dates.
Well, and that would have been during California Gold Rush.
Ah, very true. Very true.
I mean, that's the year. So
I read somewhere that up until there was several hundred people a year were crossing the trail going west until the gold rush hit, and then in 1 year there were like 20,000 people went.
That's when the Lakota Wars started.
Yeah,
it was when it was just kind of a trickle of people going across the trail, going to settle Oregon or California or wherever it was. That they were tolerable, I guess. But when 1849. When the gold rush started and the population of white folks on the trail just blew up, then the native folks started having a bigger problem. Well, number one, their food source was gone within 100 miles of the trail.
Yeah, which is something, well, we talked about that a little while ago, but I mean, you got to realize how much game these people were trying to hunt and take just to survive, to keep their people alive. And the natives didn't much care for that because that was what was keeping their people alive. And here's some interesting photographs. These are authentic. I don't know where they were taken, but you can kind of see the wagons. They're, especially in that one on the left, they're more square in, not like the Conestogas. Conestogas tended to have ends that were angled out kind of like this. Allowed more room. Need to take
Sorry.
that?
No, sorry.
All right.
Don't need to take it. These look to me like, and I don't know what the company or companies, or if they were all handmade or whatever. They look like Studebaker wagons that you would use for a chuck wagon
Well, they could be
on
I
a
mean,
ranch. Well, that one that was set up with all the big, it had that trunk where
Yeah.
they were keeping their pots and everything. That's very similar to just a chuck wagon. And again, I don't know if they were they could have been homemade at that time. I don't know.
Well, there was outfitters out there that sold a couple different styles of wagons. There was one company, I don't know if it was Studebaker, if it was somebody else. Rinker Butt talks about it. He had a chapter or two there where he was explaining wagons and what he was trying to find to take out there. And there was a couple of manufacturers, the Studebakers or whichever one, that were making them by the hundreds to take out there just for this. I mean,
Mike said that was him calling.
No, that's Brenda said that.
No, Mike said it was him.
Oh, well, Brenda said it was her too. Said, no, that was me calling and you hung up on me.
I know who it was, and I hung up on him.
See, he knows who it was. She tried to get me.
So I'm, an example of what I was talking about on those prairie women. My wife came from prairie women. I'm sure they had the exact same expression. We're like, "You want me to live where?" look at the guy on the right side there. Both the men are kind of smiling, and that woman in the middle ain't happy at all.
He probably didn't ask her before he said we're moving.
Hey, we're going to Nebraska, or we're going to Wyoming, or we're going to Oregon, and man, is it going to be good when we get there and you got to walk across.
Yeah, you only got to walk across the country.
Yeah, with them little bitty skinny treaded, wagon wheels cutting deep in the prairie.
No suspension.
They were tough human beings.
They were. And this is again, of course, this is a reenactment. And that first wagon there in the front is almost what I'd call a Conestoga. Maybe it is.
That's Conestoga with the big boat shape.
The ones you see in the background, that's more like reality for most of the pioneers. These wagons got more famous from television, but they also got more famous with the freight companies and things that were hauling more stuff out there. That's what Watch's name was driving in Dances with Wolves when he reckoned why they don't ride.
Get up there, Jimmy J. Get up there.
And then I thought I'd throw in some famous landmarks. Let me get Mike off the screen there. Not sure if this would have happened with the young of today. Yeah, I don't know, Tina. I don't think they'd have made it, or not enough of them anyway. Yeah, Tina says he might have had a smile, but he ain't standing close enough to get hit. That rock monument, for lack of a better word, or feature on the right is the I'm not going to be able to remember these now. Crap. I'm going to have to look them up.
Crap.
I knew them all. Now I can't think of them.
It's probably Chimney Rock or something like that.
That is Chimney Rock. You're absolutely correct. That's Chimney. And then the one below it, I believe, is...
in Wyoming, they would have named that after a particular part of a male horse. Unfortunately.
Oh, I got you.
and it'd be on the map as such.
The one on the right is Eagle Rock, at least according to my information, that's what it was. And let's see I forgot to put Independence Rock in here. The upper left in this picture is Capitol, I think, Courthouse Rock and Jailhouse Rock.
There's the Devil's Gap.
There's the Devil's Gap. Yeah, that's the one I was going to point out. And the one on the right is called the Twin Sisters. I'm not sure where that one is exactly. They're all supposed to be, along the trail. And Independence Rock, which is covered up with.
Right.
Do you call it?
I call it rock art.
Yeah, well, I saw it. I've seen it called petroglyphs. I guess it would be, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, more modern ones, but I just like I call petroglyphs and pictographs that the natives made rock art.
Yeah, well,
all that stuff from the Oregon Trail days, I call rock art too. It's always names and dates, and Kilroy was here kind of stuff.
Yeah,
but it's pretty cool.
I just realized both of these stones are the same stone, different angles, but whole different view. That's what got me. They tricked me. But it's in Nebraska, and it's on top of Windless Hill. And I think I'm pretty sure Rinker Buck talks about Windless Hill in his travels. But you can see, obviously, these weren't signposts that were up in the trap when the pioneers were there. They've been put up later. And actually, a lot of the markers along the trail were kept up by private citizens for a long time.
And they probably survive in Nebraska.
Well, they might, yeah, true.
Because they'd be mostly on private land. In Wyoming, unfortunately, all the markers that, the BLM spent a lot of money marking the trail and for tourism purposes, and they were really nice markers, and they've stolen every one of them as far as I know.
It's a shame.
No, we just can't have nice things.
Can't have nice stuff. And here's, of course, a much more sophisticated sign with a little history on it. Courthouse and Jail Rocks over here
in Nebraska.
And then here's an old Oregon sign. I've already shown that one once. Yeah, that's in Nebraska too. Didn't mean to have so many Nebraska signs. That's just what popped up.
Yeah, but that's cool.
And I've got some depictions here, more modern trails. Again, that picture in the lower right is we saw that earlier, but that's what those folks are doing, is reenacting this climb up to this gap. Although it looks to me like it could go around right there, so I don't know. I don't know where that's at exactly. This lower right, left-hand corner down here is showing oxen pulling a wagon. That's a Conestoga-looking wagon.
Ian says that's a good slogan for Wyoming. We just can't have that.
I know some folks that might say that about Tennessee too, Ian. I'm missing. Well, I'm not missing. I can't get out and do it. But today was a cleanup up on my reservoir area where I used to work, and the volunteers were up there today cleaning up. So I wish I was able to go with them, but I can't get out and do that anymore. And Shelley said the young of today take our forefathers. Yeah, they do, Shelley, if they even know who they are. That's the sad part. History is not one of those subjects I think that gets taught very well anymore in this country. But that's just my thinking. Here at work, we say,
we just can't have things. I worked for that same outfit.
They're a multi-state organization.
Why can't you buy me a 3/4 ton brand new 4-wheel drive pickup?
I wore this one out. I thought the guy on the top left was interesting. He's got some model of car that he's converted over to a wagon train, and I don't know whether he made it all the way out the trail or not. No idea.
That's pretty cool.
And then you see this one up here in the corner, which that looks like a mule team for Borax to me, the old 20 team.
Well,
But
that's
not 20,
definitely
but
a freight wagon.
yeah, that's a freight setup. And no, I don't know how authentic. Again, they're using horse. Well, they look like horses. Maybe those are mules. I don't know. Maybe those are
I think
jacks.
they're probably horses, but that was common. You needed more horses compared to mules.
True.
But the folks that drove those freight wagons, they were some tough people.
Yeah.
You think about having that many horses hitched up, and
That's a lot of work.
You got to get from point A to point B with that. That's a pretty good deal.
You're long. I bet their arms were longer than normal after a couple of years of that. And I'm gonna step into a little bit more modern stuff. I've been talking about Rucker. Let me rewind that. Rinker Buck. And this is his book, The Oregon Trail. And I highly recommend that if you're into reading or audible books or whatever. That's in fact, if you do the audible books, he's the narrator on that, I think. Well, I know he is on the one I had. And he's an interesting guy. He's written several interesting books. He's got a new one coming out I'm going to shill for here at the end of the story. But that's his brother Nick sitting beside him. Nick is from New England, and well, they're both from New England, but Nick still lived up there. And he was kind of famous up in that part of the country for running mule teams and teams of horses. He just kind of ended up growing up that way. Rinker went off and became a writer and a school teacher, I think. Nick just did other things. And so that's one reason why he came along with Rinker to do this. And by the time they finished, of course, they were both pretty good hands with the reins. But Nick's an interesting character. If you read the book, you'll see what I'm talking about. And this is their rig, and this is not so untypical either. They've got
a pup.
Huh?
They got a pup trailer on there.
Pup trailer, cool. Yeah. They've got their sutler type wagon, and they've got a pup trailer behind it. And I've seen photographs of originals just like this. So while it probably wasn't common, it wasn't uncommon. And I can't remember exactly why they had to have the extra space, but I think probably because they were carrying extra equipment and stuff like that. Plus, they wanted room to sleep. Although Nick slept under the wagons every night and Rinker slept inside the. Kind of an interesting story about these two guys. If you read the books, Rinker like I said, he was a writer and a kind of a college boy, and so he was real neat and fastidious about everything and his clothes, keeping his clothes clean and laid, just a certain way. And Nick's just like, well, he's probably more like me. He don't really care if he
just lay down in the dirt.
Yeah. And so they were a real contrast to each other on the trail. They carried, well, I know one of the reasons they had a pup, but because of the situation with food, and not being able maybe to go on to certain places like private land to feed their stock, they were carrying extra hay and feed in this pup wagon. And that, I think the pup wagon mostly was dedicated to the mules. And I don't remember if I've got a good picture or not, but they had a 3-team hitch of mules. And they bought this team from a couple, I think, in Missouri. Not positive about that. And they'd been together for for several years. So they knew each other and they worked together pretty well. He had 2 Jennies and one old Jack that was pretty calm. One of the Philly, golly damn, I can't talk. One of the Jennies was pretty high strung and was a little bit of a problem from time to time. She was the youngest. But the other 2 were pretty steady, so they worked out. And that's Rinker there on his knee beside one of the trail markers. And that one's dated 1843 to 1857. So you see the years of use and travel were varied. Oh, there's his 3-team hitch. There's good. That's his Jack, and I can't think of his name. Jake. I think his name was Jake. Can't remember the two Jenny's names. But that's them after they've been on the trail a little while. And there's their accident. And I don't know if this is the one that broke the tracks or not. They got in trouble up in the mountains crossing into Idaho, I think. And I believe that may be one where they actually broke their axle. They had to do some kind of repair to drag it off the side of the hill. And they actually got it down, and then somehow I think they rode one of the mules into that's the other thing about this team. One of these mules was broke the saddle, so they could ride him if they needed to. And they came and hauled the pup wagon over and got it fixed. And they did it. They had some interesting things happen. They bought this wagon from a guy who sold it to them as a complete it's an old wagon that was rebuilt and overhauled. And they got about halfway across the country and the wheels started breaking and stuff. And they found out they were just full of rot, had been painted over, and they kind of got sold a bill of goods, which didn't make them too happy. I don't know if they went back on that guy or not, but that you can't just paint over rot and expect it to hold up. They really used this thing all the way across. And here was some typical signposts, if you will, along the way that humans put out. And you can look through there. There's all kinds of names and markers. But of course, there's some from 1961. And so this is what Mark was kind of talking about. This is the abuse and the destruction that happens along these places. I mean, I guess one could say that anybody could carve on it since they did originally, but it's not really, they really shouldn't be doing it. But it's been done, and you can't really do anything to fix it without destroying more of it. Now we're going to get into some real stuff, which is a secret location by this gentleman right here standing in that crack on a rainy Wyoming day.
It's dry in that spot.
You can tell by looking it's dry in that spot.
And I had on moccasins. It was
and
dry.
he had on moccasins, yeah. There's a conversation going on over here. Do we even teach history anymore? I mean, we're so afraid to offend people. A lot of times we are afraid to offend the people that weren't even the people we should offend. What did Ian say? Oh, okay. Brenda says, and then Kay says, and now Tina says, oh, cool, Mark's secret, just one. Well, Mark, I couldn't show the location of this because it's so top secret. We'd have to kill you if we told you.
Yep.
Was that your pickup truck or somebody else's? Oh, you said you were the passenger, didn't you?
I was the passenger guide.
Sometimes that's good.
That's a spot that's got all kind of rock art, and it's kind of difficult to get to, and it's kind of in a hidden spot, and
that's why it's not destroyed.
And it ain't nobody's business.
Have you seen anything modern there? I'm losing my voice. Have you found anything modern at all on them?
So there's a few. Well, maybe I don't know if you used all the photos or not, but I'll show you a couple.
Okay.
Go back.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you look there to that photo that I'm unfortunately in, you can see some black marks on the rocks there on that face to the east of me.
Right in here.
Yeah, that's axle grease, and it's still there. And they painted some of these people carved their names with really looked like they had professional chisels, and they knew how to do that. Like maybe they were monument makers or something as a business, or I mean, as a profession. And then several of the names on this particular rock are they're just painted on with axle grease, and it's been there since the 1840s. That's pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, I think Rinker Butt talked about that too, about people using axle grease, and I don't know if they mixed anything with it or not, but it's still out there in places.
So that picture looking through the windshield of that truck, that's the same rock. And you can kind of see there just east, right in that area, you can see the axle grease paintings. But
what's that? Are those caves up there on the mountain or higher up on the ridge?
Yeah, just little overhang kind of caves.
Yeah, gotcha. I don't like rock houses or whatever back here. And here's some up closer. Again, these are all courtesy of Mr. Zorns. He took you actually just took these last week, didn't you? Or some of it anyway.
Just 2 days ago, 3 days ago. That, and you can see that name Stansbury on that
right here.
And I was talking about dyslexia. It's just real common to see the N backwards.
Yeah, there were several pictures that you sent me the other day that all the N's were backwards, and they weren't all the same people.
Right, and they weren't all the same year. And then above that Stansbury name, you can see some lighter, really poorly done scratches, and that's modern. I mean, that's, in the last 20 years or whatever.
Bye, Shelly. Thanks for coming in, and have fun on that tractor, but be safe. And this other one's there's some 1900 markers. There's one. This one right here looks like it was done by a professional. Almost looks like it was written with a quill.
Yeah. Yeah, some of them are pretty cool.
And there's one that says, I guess they were from KB Ireland. I don't know.
I think that was their name, KB Ireland.
Oh, maybe.
July 2nd, 1852.
Yeah.
And then the next name over on the other photo, it says A. Larson, so whatever the date was, 1906. And we think our neighbor is this guy's grandson.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Now, is he a Larson or is he a different name?
He's an A. Larson too.
Oh, that's
his
cool.
dad owned the ranch that this borders. It's about a 10-mile horse ride from where their ranch was at up to this set of rocks.
That's pretty cool. He might have done that as a property marker at one time.
Well, I don't think they ever owned it. I think he just did it. It's on BLM land, so.
If I got another one. Yeah, are both of these yours? I thought they were.
So yeah. So the photo on the left there, it's got a brand. You can see.
Oh, the W?
It's called the Flying W. And that's a ranch that's north of these rocks, about 10 miles. And it's, it was definitely put in later on. But it's just been scrawled on that. But they run cattle in this country. It's a big common BLM allotment where several people are running cattle on the same piece of ground.
Yeah.
And that's one of the ranches. And that other stone there on the right, that's one of the finer pieces of work, and it's just kind of fallen off the wall, and it's laying there now.
Oh, so this was part of this chunk up here.
Yeah.
There's a 1850, couple of 1850s.
And he was from Illinois. He or she they were from Illinois.
That looks like a 34. That might be a 54, but it almost looks like a 34. Yeah, they're from Illinois. That's pretty neatly carved.
So not too far from this site, there's a place called Names Hill, and it's got Jim Bridger's name carved into a rock with it says J. Bridger, whatever year, 1830 something, trapper. But he was totally illiterate, couldn't read or write even his own name.
So somebody had to do that.
So either he had a guy with him that could carve, or it's been done later on,
Maybe. And here's one of the problems. And this is one of the ways people destroy a good thing. And I just put down diggers because that's kind of what we used to call them, but they're artifact hunters usually. And if we're looking for any kind of artifact, but along the trail, they're looking for settler artifacts and drops and things, but they can destroy along the old track. Sometimes they'll dig right in the ruts. And
there's a fair amount of metal detecting, I think, occurs along the trail.
That's what I was thinking too. And that should have been more like 1-2 sentences there. Neglect and lack of interest are often two worst problems with any historical treasures such as this left upon the ground. And that's true. I mean, we had people doing that on our public land looking for early settler stuff here and Native American stuff all the time. And we pretty much outlawed use of metal detectors. I think we had completely by the time I left. They used to allow them to use them just around boat ramps and stuff because they, figured you could pick up some stuff somebody might have just dropped. But we didn't want people in there digging. And they used to go out at night sometimes and catch people digging up in remote areas where they'd found stuff before or whatever. So it's a all too common problem.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. It's I've always been torn in half on that whole subject. It's like, well, if you don't find it, how are you ever going to know about it? But it needs to be done
correctly,
in a correct manner, and it needs to be done with respect in it.
Well, it also needs to be restored.
When money gets involved, that's when it gets to be typically a problem.
Exactly. But like that hole, I mean, that if somebody did that correctly and respectfully, one of the things that would happen was they'd refill that hole and it wouldn't be a big hole.
So is that Ranker Buck's outfit again?
Well, let me tell you what that is. When they were kids, and I can't remember what year this was, but when they were kids, their dad was kind of an extravagant, interesting fellow himself. And he'd been a pilot. He only had one leg, or he had a wooden prosthesis, or he had an old kind of prosthesis. And I don't know if he lost that in an airplane accident or what, but the boys flew back then, or Rinker did anyway. And, but he decided he just came in, and according to the story, he just kind of came in one day and said, "Hey, we're going to take a wagon trip." And he had this sign painted up that said, I believe it might have had their name on it, but it said, "See America slowly." So they were traveling and kind of seeing America along the back roads in a wagon. And the horse in the back was one they'd saddle up and ride ahead if they were trying to look for campsites and that sort of thing. But they took that, and they had Oh my word, they had so many kids. I can't, but good Catholic family, Rinker said, and they had just, 6 or 8 kids. And, I don't know if he said his mother went or not, now that I think about it. But Dad did, and he took them across the country. So they took that sign with them. Nick actually had that sign nailed in his workshop up in Maine, which is where they were from. And he brought it with him, and they actually put that on the back of the wagon, on the back of the pup trailer. And if you may go back here, close your eyes if you get car sick. That's it laying right there across the back of or on the bottom of that wagon when it's turned over there.
No.
Right-hand picture. So they took that original sign with them and, carried it on this latest trip, which I thought was kind of cool. And I don't know where they got this wagon, and I can't remember if they had mules or horses on this trip. Probably horses, but. And then I want to shield just a tiny bit for a couple of his books. This top book, Life on the Mississippi, actually was just released first part of this month, I think. Maybe it was the end of August, but I thought it was early in September because I got my copy right after they came out. And he's doing a new trip traveling down the Mississippi. So I'm quite sure I want to do a book on this. Well, not just down the Mississippi. He traveled by flatboat down the Ohio and then the Mississippi. And they actually built this flatboat that they took down from plans from similar flatboats that were built in the 1800s to go down the river. And then he's also done something here with about the mule, and I don't know much about that one yet. I haven't read that. I'm thinking about trying to find that, and then that could just be a calendar. But I think it's a picture book of some sort with mules, showing different kinds of mules in it. But anyway, I highly recommend his books. He's a good writer. He's good fun to read, and I've started this Mississippi book, and it's all about stuff you and I used to read about to a degree, about traveling down the Ohio and through all that country back when that was the only way you could do that, and it wasn't always too safe.
The dark and bloody river.
Yeah. First time I ever crossed the Ohio, I told somebody, I said, man, you probably going to Friendship. I said, God, the history that floated by here.
Yeah.
And it's so far it's turned out, it's looking really good. I'm amazed at the amount of people and number of boats and the stuff they actually hauled down the river from those settlements in that country down to New Orleans and sold. And, that's just how they did it back then. And it's so far, it's pretty interesting. I believe that's all I've got. Yep, that's it. Ian's thinking, oh my God, thank goodness. Oh, we stop all that foolishness right now. Anyhow, that's today's.
That was fun.
Show. Hey, Dean, good morning, sir. I may not be good for much longer. Yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed that a lot. And as usual, I didn't have.
We can nerd out on history stuff.
Yeah, and we're pretty good at nerding out on history stuff. I mean, how many people in this room can say they've sat in the middle of a teepee and had similar discussions?
Well, 2 of us.
Around a fire and
smoke in your eyes.
Smoke in your eyes, and maybe even chewing on a piece of buffalo jerky. You never know. Well, guys, that's about it for the day. Anybody got any questions or suggestions? I plan on I'm sure I'll do a story about the river travel when I get through reading this book that time. Tina says she slept in a book or sat in a tent, but not in a teepee. Teepee living special. Yeah, Ian, you might be able to do that out where you're from. You may find somebody that's got some set up. There's campers out there now that have teepees set up for people to stay in. Some of them are pretty darn plush. Dean is at work in the Wendy's dining room. Dean, you're making me hungry, buddy.
I'll take a small chocolate frosty.
Dean, we're placing orders, buddy. When do you think you can deliver? Ian, if you've never been in a teepee, you're absolutely right. There's nothing finer than telling the stories in a teepee with a fire in it at night. Maybe the smoke's going out, maybe it's not, but most of it does. I used to lay in bed and read stories at night to this youngin', or he wasn't a youngin', but
Yeah,
he was in a sense. We used to read all kinds of stories in that when we go on trips and be sleeping in the teepee.
Blackfoot Lodge tales.
Blackfoot Lodge tales for one.
Various Pat McMahon.
Various Pat McMahon. And what was the other one? What's the name of the book about the crow? The white guy that lived with the crows, or the
My Life as an Indian.
Yeah, I guess that's what it was. So we used to read all kinds. Ian said yurts. I don't know how to spell them. Well, yurts is correct spelling, but I've never stayed in a yurt. And I don't have anything against them, but I really like teepees because they came from here. That was a Plains Indian creation, which is another thing TV and the movies got wrong. They showed teepees back here with the Cherokee living in them, and that didn't happen.
Did not happen.
Oh, Dean says actually he's not working. He's just having dinner. He's just having lunch there.
Wow.
They offered to let him go home. I'm eating a grilled chicken sandwich without the bun. Man, I'm telling you, I'm getting hungry. Oh, Ian saying he stayed in the yurt, but not a teepee. I got bad hankering to get a lodge. I'm missing teepee living. So anyhow, I'm sure everybody's got other things to go do, and you're probably all doing something else anyway. And I got to go take something for my lower body and get it off my keister for a little while. It's getting hard to sit here, so it's time to get up and move. God, Dean, I may have to send Brenda over to the Wendy's. Brenda even talked about it being relaxing, sleeping in a teepee. It is. And providing the water's not running underneath it so hard it's washing you away. We've done that too.
We've had the fire put out from underneath. So it rained so hard it filled up the fire pit. Oh my, those were the days there now. Yeah, we've seen a lot of water run through teepees. Yeah, and lean-tos. Of course, that one year we had more water coming through the lean-to than we had going under it, I think. Thank you, Ian. Everybody, if you hit that like button for us one time, and, if you haven't already, look into, think about subscribing. But I appreciate you just being here. And, if the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise, I'll see you all again next week. Next week. Yes, Mark's not going to be here next week, but I may have someone else here. And I don't know. It depends on how things work out. Mark's going to be gone next weekend. And I have a young lady who's a teacher that we know, and she may be here with us. And if she's not, then it'll be next week. And if she's not available next week, I might take the weekend off, but I'll let you know before then. So, see you, buddy. You have a good rest of your weekend. Take care of that. You're chasing antelope.
Oh yeah. When do you leave?
We won't leave. We'll just go out from here.
Oh, you'll go. Okay. So you're able to stay home. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Goodbye.
Later on.